the strongest nootropic peptide in existence. For people like me and you, biohackers, people that want to just get the cognitive benefits, there's nothing like it.
The powers that be, Big Pharma, they're going to put an end to it. Just tell me, what is it that I am about to inject into my physical vessel?
Yes, so...
All right, Jay Campbell in the studio. First of all, Jay, you have put this in front of me. And for those who are listening via the podcast app or any other audio platform, this is a unmarked vial and an insulin syringe. And because I trust you immensely, because you have never given me bad advice, and in fact, all of the advice you have given me as it relates to health, wellness, and longevity has been an absolute game changer, I'm going to try it. So just tell me, what is it that I am about to inject into my physical vessel?
Yes. So, Chris Kevin, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on your podcast for the fourth time. It's awesome that we're going to do this tonight because we're going to really drop a lot of amazing stuff. But you are holding in your hand right now cerebralizin, and you're about to inject 12 milligrams of cerebralizin. And cerebralizin is the strongest nootropic peptide in existence. It's been in the Russian, call it Bulgarian, Yugoslavian world for literally about 4 decades. And in fact, it's so popular over there that they actually keep it on emergency vehicles. And when people have heart attacks or strokes, they load them up with a gigantic bolus of it to prevent, brain atrophy, oxygen deprivation to the brain. It's absolutely an amazing product. And you're going to
muscular, yes?
Yeah, you're going to inject it IM because of the vascular tissue. But it's just a very, very powerful nootropic for people like me and you, biohackers, people that want to just get the cognitive benefits. There's nothing like it. It definitely improves brain speed, improves short-term and long-term memory. It does so many amazing things. And as you know, I think the biggest thing that it does, and we have to say this, is if you get somebody who has early stage dementia or Alzheimer's, you can reverse it.
Okay, well, I don't think I'm quite there yet. The question that I do have,
God.
It's 8 p.m. as we're currently recording this. Is this going to influence the night of sleep ahead?
No, absolutely not.
All right. Well, that works for me.
But you should notice improved brain speed, a little bit more focus, just more awareness. Like the light gets a little bit brighter as we do this podcast because we're going to go really deep.
Interesting. Yeah. So, as I said, like you have never given me bad advice, and you have helped change my perspective on many things that have served me, and I've put a lot of my friends, athletes, other people that are operating at a high level onto, and everybody has nothing but great things to say. So, and I think that there's like a lesson in that, in and of itself, because a lot of times, people get caught up on not understanding something, and they see somebody who's doing something or advocating something or recommending something, and they think that because they're not a subject matter expert that they need to do a bunch of research before they take any action. And then they don't do any research, right? Because at the end of the day, I think like when we talk about doing the work a lot of times is like doing the research,
right?
And looking at certain information, and that's like not sexy, right? That could be stressful. It could be time consuming. I have found that the shortcut of all shortcuts is to look at someone who is already performing at a significantly higher level, looking at somebody who's already doing what you want to achieve, and just model what they're doing.
Right.
And an example that I can give is when I moved into my new place, I invested in a red light therapy configuration, and it wasn't super expensive, but it was several $1,000s. And I didn't even really understand comprehensively the benefits of red light therapy. But I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to make this investment, and then I'll do the research after the fact. And, I think that's kind of a lesson. A lot of people get overwhelmed, like they don't understand something. It's like, well, look, you get two choices. Like you can continue to do nothing and be a nobody, or you can take advantage of the resources that are available to you. And a lot of times, man, the reason I think people don't take action, despite being presented with all of this amazing information from people who are already doing the thing, is because the information is free.
Yeah.
And it probably shouldn't be. More people would probably take action if they had to pay for this information.
Good point.
But that said, man, like we're here for a very specific reason. A few days ago, I woke up to a lot of text messages. There's a thread between you, myself, and Rick, and I got up to speed quickly. There has been some significant developments in your world, in the world of peptides. To a certain degree, I think we knew something inevitably would be coming, because anytime you have something that is legitimately helping people get healthy, improve the quality of their life, optimize, eventually the powers that be, Big Pharma, they're going to put an end to it, or they're going to do what they can to make it a lot more difficult. They're going to instill some degree of resistance. So these compounds, these products are not so readily available. And that, what it sounds like is that's what's happening now. So get us up to speed. What is going on in the world of peptides? What does this mean for the future of peptides? And just what is the current state of affairs in your world as it stands?
Yeah, I mean, you just nailed it. I mean, we've kind of all felt that eventually there would be some form of regulation in the space, because it is the wild, wild west. You have like everybody and their mother attempting to sell peptides. You have influencers or wannabe influencers talking about peptides who have absolutely no idea what the fuck they're talking about. And so it's just become this wild, wild west circus. But what happened 11 days ago as of today, and again, we're in the middle of December 2025, is that our attorney, the Honorable Jeff Cohen, got a call from somebody in the federal government, let's just say that, who said that in early January, they were going to make an example out of a large research use only company. Now, to define what that means is research use only are the people that are selling right now peptides direct to consumer for research purposes only. It's perfectly legal to do this. There is nothing illegal about this, but obviously people who use these, have to say that I'm using this for research purposes on myself or my animal, my brother, my sister, my aunt, my uncle, whatever. It's totally legal. But because Eli Lilly, you already mentioned Big Pharma, has all of these amazing GLP-1 drugs that have A, already been approved, or B, in the process of becoming approved, they want to technically eliminate their direct competitors. And obviously their direct competitors are people like me, BioLongevity Labs, people like Peptide Sciences, people like Core Peptides, on it goes. And so we've been told that at some point in early January, they were going to make an example out of one of these companies. And to do so, they are going to limit, if not outright eliminate, the sale of what they consider non-sterile injectables, which is a joke. You guys know you just injected a sterile injectable. But because we're not coming from a pharmacy or FDA approved, they say it's non-sterile. But the bottom line is, to summarize what is happening, is Eli Lilly is pressuring the government to eliminate their direct competitors, which again are research companies who are selling GLP-3, which is Retatrutide, or selling Tirzepatide, which is GLP-2, or selling GLP-1, which is semaglutide, for obviously very competitive prices to the American public. And they want to put a stop to it because they want their high compounded Big Pharma, manufacturer direct prices to take over. And so if that happens, Chris, which again, they're saying it could happen in early January, a couple of things could happen. And this was actually just given to me literally a couple hours ago before I showed up here at Nutrition Salutis headquarters. And they are now saying that they may eliminate credit card processing, right? So imagine if your business...
The playbook.
Yeah. Imagine if Nutrition Solutions woke up tomorrow morning and you were told that MasterCard, Visa, and Amex you couldn't accept for your clients, right? So it's like you're now eliminating payment plans or payment processors or payment choices. So they may do that. But the bottom line is something is coming in January. And because of that, a lot of research companies, and by the way, I want to define what a research company is because people get all...
Yeah, actually, let me jump in here and kind of guide this, because I often wonder, how is it that companies like yours, other companies that are selling peptides, are able to do so online, without a prescription? You look at the bottle, it'll say for research purposes only. I'm not certain, but I believe I have seen some that
say not for
human consumption. Right. So I do realize that that's a disclaimer of sorts. But how is it that it is so readily available online, yet you're saying that federal law enforcement, whomever, are about to make an example out of somebody? Is it a conflict between state and federal law, or how does that translate?
Yeah, no, so it's a good question. So it's a very gray area to start. But the reality is that if they, meaning the government or federal or state, and you could technically say both, can prove that for research purposes only is also being shown to be for human use, depending on, again, the manufacturer, depending on that research company, they could technically make an argument that if you're sending it across state lines or you're sending it for this purpose or that purpose, that they could arrest you for various crimes. But if you ask my attorney or any smart attorney who's been in the space for a long time, the research use only, again, RUO designation, really means direct to consumer. And for the last 15 to 20 years, it really goes back probably close to 20. I think it's like 17 or 18 years. The federal government and the state governments have allowed this to go on because these companies gave the consumer the opportunity to purchase peptides, which, as you guys know, are incredibly life-saving for many, many people at an affordable rate versus buying them from a compounder, which obviously has much higher price points. And so they've been kind of this intermediary for people that couldn't afford a prescription and a compounded version to purchase direct, as you said, online to the consumer. So it's a very gray area. And where they're interpreting now, or where it may eventually be interpreted again by the federal government, and maybe it's even the state, is that they want to protect pharma's call it patents with GLP-1s, right? And that's where this is going. And this is what we've been hearing for all of 2025, whenever we would talk to our attorneys or whenever we would talk to state regulators, that this is the path that it was going. But now it seems like, in very recent times, they're now, meaning state regulators, federal regulators, are going to make an end run because Eli Lilly doesn't want any direct competitors to their products. And so if that happens, they could technically stop the sale of all the injectable peptides, which we can get into in a second if we want to talk about them, from RUOs, which, as you guys know, would then automatically inflate the prices from compound pharmacies and dramatically remove the ability of the American public or Joe public or consumer to get peptides at an affordable price.
Understood. And that's actually a good point because a peptide expert, I am not. And I think in your world, you're used to perhaps communicating, interacting with individuals who are at a higher level of competence and understanding, have been in the world for a while, have done the research. The way that I look at peptides is kind of like the way I look at crypto.
Sure.
There's a lot of different cryptocurrencies, a ton of different coins, little bullshit coins that are popping up
Shit coins
overnight. Right. And at the end of the day, you have a small subset of quality, just front runners that are, those are the ones that I back. I back winners.
Right.
The way that I've tried to kind of frame my perspective on peptides, because over the years, it's become more, it was one of those things where when it originally kind of came on the scene, I wasn't sure if this is just something else that's going to be relevant for a bit and then just fade. And it actually did quite the opposite. It gained more and more and more momentum. And the reason for that is obviously it was effective. It was helping people get results. So, instead of trying to burden myself with understanding all of these different compounds, I looked at like, okay, well, what would I like to improve? What do I think would be the most helpful for me? And the one that really kind of got me in the game was NAD.
Sure.
NAD plus. And I will tell you that I haven't done any like price comparison between, a majority of peptides, what they would cost from a hormone replacement center versus what it would be on a website like your own. But what I do know objectively is if I were to purchase NAD plus through Titan Medical, that's where I go. It's about 3 times the cost of what it would be from a website like yourself, like BioLongevity. Now, the argument that is to be made, and the reason, obviously, Eli Lilly and just Big Pharma in general, their position and their stance on this is going to be that they want to make sure that people are getting the most efficacious formulas and are being monitored through blood work. Right. That's going to be the argument. So, like, what is your perspective on that?
Yeah. So, that's what most people think. And the reality is, I want to unpack the whole thing because you bring up a good point, but there's no difference from like a BioLongevity Labs, a Peptide Sciences, a Core Peptides. I'll just name those 3. There's obviously tons of other great companies, but there's no difference in the quality of our peptides than a compounded version. The differentiation in the price that you mentioned is because of the registrations, the pay-for-play affiliations, the certifications.
Yeah, it's not a
that you have
markup
have.
to increase margin. It's the cost that
100%, right? So there's no difference, right? So if you look at the American public, and we already talked about this, but the American consumer, the average American consumer can only afford so much, right? If you go now into the script version or the telemedicine route, which may be, by the way, the only way, if they get their way, then that may eliminate everything and everything goes telehealth. But that 3x margin really is probably somewhere between 4.5 and 6x. But yeah, you can, with certain deals, you might get a 3x margin. But if they eliminate our companies and our products, which are, again, playing that 1 to 5 or 1 to 6 margin, you will see compounded double immediately. And once Lilly approves Retatrutide, it will probably 3x.
which has happened numerous times throughout human history.
Of course.
Numerous times. This is common.
And remember, we need to talk about this. It was only 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks ago on Friday that Trump announced, the low discounted prices for semaglutide and tirzepatide to the American public, right? It's going to be like $279 and $349. And that was all subsidies because they're not asking Lilly to lower their prices because they would laugh in their face. They have so much power. So obviously the federal government is giving them, but we know, Chris, because you just said it, whenever you eliminate direct competitors to pharmaceutical groups, what do? They just slowly but surely raise the prices and fuck everybody, right?
Yeah.
So everybody knows that Trump essentially, and I don't want to call him out, but essentially he took Lilly's money for whatever special interest, gave them that deal, and now somewhat limited or eliminated, I don't want to say eliminated, but somewhat limited the competition, because what is coming in 2026 now is evidently potentially an elimination of our businesses and a massive regulation of the compounding space, which again is only going to inflate those that stay around's prices and ultimately fuck the American consumer, who's now going to pay way more than they ever paid before. And again, I think you guys know this. The average American consumer cannot go through a telehealth platform, Chris. They can't afford it. We are that intermediary that has given people the option to get life-saving peptides for their parents, for themselves, from whoever. And if that goes away, you have a major problem in America because now you have 5% of the American public can afford a peptide.
Yeah, and I could be wrong about this. I think that most of the people that are going to a company like your own, I don't know that these are necessarily individuals that are in a life-saving scenario. I think these are conscious individuals who are looking to optimize and become the best version of themselves without being the poorest version of themselves.
That's for sure. I call them sovereign, empowered, and free. But there, without a doubt, is people buying stuff for their elderly parents.
No doubt.
And their sick parents, and they're giving them these life-altering drugs. I mean, think about it. You just injected that. We don't sell that because you're not allowed to sell that. But cerebral niacin, if you give that to a early onset, neurodegenerative disease, which is Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's, or dementia, you can reverse it.
By the way, I absolutely, and for the last 8 minutes or so, I've noticed a significant just difference in my baseline. It's almost like I'm more conscious of what you're saying. I'm a lot more focused, a lot more calm. My brain is processing at a much faster rate, and I'm just kind of, I'll be honest, I just feel very calm and almost like it's the beginning of the day as opposed to the end of the day. So yeah, good stuff.
Product, yeah. And I wish I could sell it. It would be a massive.
Yeah, we're not going to spend too much time rubbing it in everybody's face. But look, I wanted a majority of today's conversation to be, obviously semaglutide, Ozempic, last couple of years has been a very popular topic in one way or another. Yeah. But with Retatrutide, which is a GLP-3, not to be confused with GLP-1, which is what Ozempic is.
Yes.
With Retatrutide in the game and being an available, formidable option, regardless if we're talking about having to go through a pharmacy, having to, currently there's opportunity to get it online, independent of how one is to procure it. Is there any reason for people to even use a GLP-1 when the GLP-3 option is available and is said to be extremely effective, and you're not seeing any of the reports of crazy lawsuits, people going blind, people actually using Ozempic and ending up fatter because they eat up all their lean muscle and actually end up having a higher body fat percentage, not to mention a shitty, skinny, fat, just unsightly physique? is there any reason or utility in using a GLP-1 when a GLP-3 is an option?
So this is a great question. We could literally do an entire podcast about this because, as you guys know, my book, it's called Metabolic Awakening with GLP-1 Peptides. It's coming out at the end of January, and it's the deepest, most well-researched book of my life. This will be my 9th book, and that's coming from somebody who has 5 international best-selling books. I analyze all the studies on all the drugs, including semaglutide, which is obviously Ozempic, including testosterone, which is Mounjaro and Zepbound, and even Retatrutide, which has really been in the pharmaceutical community in stage 2, stage 3 trials the last 3 years. And I can honestly tell you the answer to your question is absolutely fucking no. There is no purpose at all for semaglutide, which is, again, Ozempic anymore, because it's a stage 1. All it does is suppress appetite. And all of the poor, sad, diabetic, obese, dumpster fire people that are taking it do it wrong. The doctors give them poor dosage results or poor dosage advice. They're taking, as you know, 6, 8, 10, 12 milligrams a week. They're whacking out their receptors. They're having all the side effects that you know about, that you've talked about on, and you and I have talked about on various podcasts. But I can actually say this. All of the bad results, even for that, which I call garbage stage 1 drug, is all due to 2 reasons. Lifestyle is horrible, as you know, because, again, most of these people are dumpster fires and they think these things are magic buttons or easy pills. Yeah. Or, and this is the number one reason, they take too high of a dose. If we microdose, and we're going to get into this in this podcast, all of these drugs, and then most importantly, we actually do the lifestyle things that you talk about and I talk about, which is we live insulin controlled, we exercise, we eat nutrition solutions meals. We actually lift weights. We do cardiovascular training.
Jay, let me jump in there real quick.
None of this.
Listen, this is not a promotion for Nutrition Solutions, but here's the reality. Yes. The reality of it is you could do this on your own, but you are not.
Right.
You're not. And the reality is you will not make those changes because it would be too massive of a change for one to sustain, which is why so many people have
the easy button.
I don't know. I mean, well, that's kind of what Nutrition Solutions is, though, at the end of the day, right? Yeah. But it's the productive easy button. Yeah. The reality of it is you see many people who will get to a point where they see a picture of themselves and they just like that rude awakening. They do not, they didn't realize how off the path that they've gotten. They didn't realize how terrible they look till they see that one image and like, all right, you know what? I got to make some changes here. I got to clean my diet up. And then they'll try to grill up a bunch of chicken, cook up a batch of rice and some green beans, whatever. And then they attempt to eat nothing but green beans, rice, and grilled chicken endlessly, 3 meals a day, every day for, I don't know, I'd say that's giving a lot of credit. I do not believe it is sustainable to eat like that. If you're making a lifestyle change, if you're a bodybuilder or something, you can do it. But even then, this is why you see bodybuilders who look terrible for the most part in the off season, because that type of consumption, that type of eating schedule is not sustainable. So what ordinarily happens is people will do that for a little while and then they'll just go back to the drive-through, go back to the convenience. When we talk about Nutrition Solutions, what we're really talking about is incorporating a system in your life. And it doesn't have to be Nutrition Solutions. Look, hire a private chef, as long as they're not fat and completely unaware of what healthy eating and nutrition entails. There's other ways to get it done. But the bottom line is if you want to be fit, if you want to look good naked, if you want to have more energy, I mean, if you want to have the levels of energy and confidence that you had at 25, you have to go into the day prepared. You cannot go into a day and just every meal just kind of fending for yourself, trying to figure it out last minute, because what is readily available and convenient is not going to be the formidable option. So when you talk about Nutrition Solutions, you're talking about putting a system in place that lowers resistance and allows you to streamline the process of obtaining the results that you're after.
Dude, to swing it back to what you asked me. So you don't need semaglutide at all anymore. And we'll talk about Retatrutide, but like my lifestyle right now, which has been the last 2 years the same, 24, 25, going into 26, is my wife and I use a microdose of Retatrutide, and we eat Nutrition Solutions when I'm at home at least twice, when I'm traveling sometimes 3 times. But you have to, again, getting back, these things are not magic bullets. Terzapatide is better than semaglutide because you get the appetite suppression and you get a little bit of metabolic rate increase. But again, if you don't eat calorically restricted, if you're fat, right, you're a dumpster fire, you have to restrict your calories. You have to eat clean, wholesome foods, which obviously you provide. if you microdose with this and then do the other things of exercise and obviously get solid sleep and lift and do cardio, these things are cheat codes for improving your life. But again, 95% of the American public, and I should say the global public, isn't using them as a cheat code because they go to some quack functional medicine doctor or some GP who says, here, take this. And then they give them, again, the stair-step dose on the actual script, which is 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 milligrams. You guys, we were just talking about this. The study that came out last week about Retatrutide, which clearly will make it the greatest drug of all time, according to Lilly's mindset and their projections money-wise, is 12 milligrams a week. Chris, if you and I took 12 milligrams of Retatrutide, we wouldn't eat.
Yeah.
We would feel like shit. There actually is side effects from Retatrutide at 12 milligrams. I forget the name of it, but it's for people that get this horrible sensitive skin. And I'm thinking, like, who gets sensitive skin on Retatrutide? And then I start looking at the study. And again, I was reading this in the book. And they're taking 12 to 15 milligrams a week, bro. If you took 12 to 15 milligrams a week of this drug, you and I wouldn't even eat.
I've never taken more than one. And
I'm saying it's insane.
I've used it twice in 6 to 8 week intervals on 2 separate occasions. And I mean, I had total out of the three injections I was doing a week, it was 1 to 1.25.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you, it didn't kill my appetite. What it did do is kind of regulate I was never really thinking about food as much, and I'll be honest, in the evening, I'm, as someone who has a sweet tooth, that was kind of the origin of our donuts at Nutrition Solutions. Shameless plug. But no, the reason we have these is because, like, as somebody who prioritizes living a healthy lifestyle, I want to eat clean, I want to feel good, I want to look good, but I don't want to feel like my diet is a prison sentence, right? I want to get mental gratification. So we needed to incorporate something to kind of just, scratch that itch, if you will. But at night, it's almost, 100% of the time, my sweet tooth, it's nowhere to be found anytime but at night. And I think that's where kind of that happens with most people. When I was taking Retatrutide, I just didn't really care. It wasn't something, I didn't want to snack out of boredom, because at night, we have less going on.
Right.
So there's, boredom sets in, and that's really when most people are going to the fridge for the 6th time, looking to, like, as if something would have appeared since the last time. But that's what it did for me. It kind of just calmed down the food noise. And also there's a lot of other benefits, but stuff that I actually felt, again, nothing with, because if you have your appetite suppressed, a lot of times what that translates to is almost like a bit of nausea.
Yeah, that's exactly what people.
And nobody wants to fucking feel like that.
And that's honestly why semaglutide and tirzepatide, which again are stage 1 and stage 2 GLPs, are not anything like Retatrutide, which is a dramatic advancement. And again, I don't want to rabbit hole, but this is why Lilly is trying to shut down the competitive market, right? Because they know that Retatrutide is going to replace everything and become $1 trillion drug. And back to what you were just saying, it's very subtle what it does, right? It changes brainwave patterning so that you don't have food noise, right? All the women that use it love that because they're emotional-based eaters, so that eliminates their emotional-based eating. But then for guys like you and me who are fit and muscular and super lean, it's improving nutrient partitioning and improving insulin signaling. Yeah. So that's dramatically helping people like us who are already on the go, who are already driven and doing lots of exercise and driving the caloric demand. And so, I want to say this too, like it's going to, and it already has, but it's dramatically changing the performance world. So yes. The bodybuilding, fitness, competitive world is now also learning about the power of Retatrutide. And look, I don't want to rabbit hole to the point where like we're going to lose sight of this. But as Rick knows, because I told him and as I told you guys like 3 weeks ago, I already write in the book about stage 4 and stage 5 agonists that are coming that will make Retatrutide forgotten in a year, right? Now, of course, it'll still be sold by Lilly because we know the pharma cycle is 3 to 4 years before they approve a drug. But we will, in our space, you and me, Rick, people like us, the people that listen to us, will already be moved by Retatrutide within a year because there'll be better products already.
Break it down in the most simple way possible. Outside of slightly suppressing one's appetite, how does Retatrutide provide a benefit to the user?
So basically, it's a good question. In some people who are, I would call them fatter, more insulin resistant, they notice more appetite suppression than you and I. But that's also because you and I are very efficient calorically now, right? Like we have an improved metabolic rate. Our metabolism is humming because of all the things we do, the things we take, the muscle to fat ratio we have. So for people like us, and again, most fit people, professional athletes, wrestlers, et cetera, it's going to improve the food that they eat from a standpoint of absorption, glycogen, reglycogenation. It's also going to improve insulin signaling. So basically, you will be more in control of your insulin. So you're not going to have food noise. You're not going to have like surges of like, oh, I'm starving. You know what I mean? You're going to be, like you said, you're going to be very calm, very controlled of how you eat. And then I would also say, because it does improve both of those things, again, nutrient partitioning, insulin signaling so much, it's never going to allow you to overeat. Because it's going to tell you your body's had enough and your body has filled its stores required for energy. So again, there's no doubt, and I've said this on many podcasts and I'll say it again, this is the most powerful, most effective drug that has ever been designed so far. And because of that, I honestly think this, and again, it'll never happen because they won't make it available, but I think this is the drug that could actually eliminate obesity if Jay Campbell and Chris Cavallini were president and vice president of the world. Because we could take this drug and we could give it to all the people who are slaves to their appetite, who are slaves to their insulin resistance, slaves to their thought processes around food, and we could absolutely cure that situation. Now, granted, they have to do the work, but that's the one thing that it does. It helps people who are insulin resistant and addicted to food and craving food all the time move through that.
So it's not the food that they're addicted to, it's the comfort that
exactly
the downstream of that is being addicted to food. And since most obese people will never change their lifestyle, let's talk specifically about how this can be used for people that are just looking for performance optimization. People who are, maybe they're not like shredded, maybe they're not lean, but they're in the gym, they're fit, they have some, muscle mass, they have good habits in place. Because I think that's an important distinction to make. I don't know that the appetite, how it influences appetite. With me, I'm so regimented.
Right.
I'm eating at more or less within like a 15 to 30 minute window, the same times every day,
Sure.
the same amount of meals, usually if I'm on routine. Right. Sometimes that changes where I have to adjust my routine if I'm out of the country or out of town.
Right.
But for the most part, it is surgically consistent. And I'm eating not because I'm hungry, but because it's time to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
And because I have a certain amount of protein that I know, non-negotiable, I'm going to get in every single day.
Yep.
That's the only thing that I count, right? So for people who are dialed in, who are getting in their water, that are in the gym 5 or 6 days a week, if they were to incorporate Retatrutide, how much would they need to take in? What would be the dosing frequency protocol for them to get optimal results?
Yeah, amazing question. So obviously we'll break it between men and women because I know we got both listening to this. We'll start with women. So women need less than men. If you're a woman and you're, say, let's say 100 to 135, 140 pounds, you're, 5'4" to 5'8", lean, muscular. You're like us. You do all the things. You're probably taking 0.1 to 0.15 milligrams every other day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, whatever. Some women can even just get by with 2 times a week, right? So Tuesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, or Monday, Thursday, whatever. For guys, it's somewhere a little bit more than that, right? So if you're a bigger dude, right? Let's say you're 300. Let's just say you're a pro football player, a pro wrestler, and you're 260 to 290. Lean. Under 15% body fat. You probably can take 0.4 to 0.5 every other day. But guys like you and me, bro, where you're between 180 and 220.
What does that translate to per week?
You don't need more. I'll get to that in a second, but you don't need more than 0.25 milligrams every other day. So that's literally less than 1 milligram a week. Now let's talk about that. What does that mean? Contrast that with what pharma is recommending people take. And bro, they recommend a starting dose of 6 fucking milligrams.
So not only is it going to be incredibly more expensive on a bottle to bottle basis, but the amount, I'm choking on a donut.
It's a good donut to chew.
By the way, not because it's dry, because I'm attempting to talk as I'm saying this.
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my head around how much that would.
Literally insane.
That's like a bottle a week, effectively, if it's a 12 milligram bottle.
Yes.
And if the bottles are hundreds of dollars, that's like
thousands.
50.
It's absolutely insane, bro. I mean, again, and
so you have to be a real, like, fat, rich piece of shit to be You know what I mean? To be somebody who is being recommended and actually follows through, you have to be. And I just feel that that's going to be such a small.
But yeah, let's be honest. There's not a lot of fat, rich pieces of shit in the world, right? So nobody, again, this is what pharma wants, bro. They want to remove this from the public. They want to keep this in a small subset of humans that can afford it. And again, the study is very clear. 12 milligrams a week for 68 weeks in a row. Let's think about this and unpack this. These are people who are metabolic dumpster fires, right? They're insulin resistant, they're type 2 diabetics, and Chris, literally in the studies, and this is the biggest like gotcha, they did not exercise and they did not restrict their calories. But they still lost at 12 milligrams a week for 68 weeks, on average, 71 pounds. So statistically, that's almost impossible. But this just also shows you the power of this drug. So when you then use it correctly, which we already talked about, 0.15 or 0.1 as a woman every other day, or 0.25 to 0.5 as a man every other day, so somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5 milligrams a week, it's profound in the results it generates. But again, the pharmacodynamics of high dosages, which is, again, what pharma wants, right? They want the doctors to start at a high script and then go higher. And by the way, we're not even talking about where these people go. They go from 6 to 12 to 18 to 24 milligrams in a week, which no one can afford. They whack out the receptors. They have all the side effects that you and I already know about: the Wegovy face, Wegovy neck, muscle loss, thyroid.
What is that? I've actually never heard that.
So what it means is it's muscle loss or catabolism, but it's basically collapsing the skin and the muscle and the fatty acids in the area that it happens. So you see it in women. It's mostly happening in women more than men, but it does happen in men. But when you see like the face collapse, or you see the butt collapse, or you see the neck collapse, it's because they literally have catabolized through the muscle tissue that is supporting the actual facial jaw structure, or the butt structure, the glute structure, whatever. So that's happening. But all of that is avoidable if people would lift weights, if people were hormonally optimized, if people were eating, nutrition solutions, sound, organic, wildcat, sustainable, grass-fed food.
A high protein diet.
Yes, a high protein diet. I mean, all these people, they take these drugs, they stop eating for weeks, if not days. I mean, bro, this is true because I read all this in the books. Do you know the average person that starts with Ozempic or Tirzepatide, and they take these high dosages and, again, extended into Retatrutide, they go without eating for 4 to 5 days.
That's insane.
Imagine not eating food for 4 or 5 days and seeing the weight drop off initially and getting excited about it.
Yeah, and you have the ability, I suppose, to keep doing it because you have no appetite.
They're so clueless.
So again, the people who are tuning into this, I don't believe are those. Just so with our company, Nutrition Solutions, one would think out of the thousands of active clients that we have at any given time, one would think or naturally and reasonably assume that our clients are like overweight, obese, just people that are completely off the path, that have gotten to a point where they're like, I'm going to draw a line in the sand and I'm going to do this. I'm going to commit to this process. And that's not the case.
Yep.
Now, of course, we have some that fit that bill, people that have gotten to a point where they realize that change is in order. They've taken responsibility for their situation. They're doing something about it, right? And that's admirable. Most of our clientele are people that are active, people that may at one point have been in shape, got off the path. Sure. They're busy. They're out in the world making things happen, have a family, busy in their career, busy with their business, and they're looking for the express pass to fitness transformation.
Exactly.
So as we're speaking on Retatrutide, as it relates to individuals that are already somewhat dialed in, obviously there's always room for improvement at every level. What are the non-negotiables? If you're on... or excuse me, not if you're on. If you're considering taking this compound, what has to be firmly in place before you even consider incorporating this into your wellness arsenal?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, probably the best question on the podcast. I mean, and I say this all the time, and in my book, the guy who writes the foreword, Dr. Rudy Eberwein, literally tells doctors this before they write scripts. He says, if you don't have these people do these, call them the foundational precepts before prescribing a GLP, you're guilty of malpractice. And these are very simply,
powerful.
Yes, these are very simply, are you eating, and I love you're always saying this, 1 gram of protein per pound of goal body weight.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're not, and you take a GLP, they're so effective. Even the shitty stage 1, Ozempic, you're going to have muscle loss.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit who you are, what your genetics are. You're going to lose muscle.
And by the way, the only way to improve body composition, which translates to how your body looks naked, is to build muscle.
Exactly.
Not lose it.
Yes.
You will not look better if you lose muscle,
That's 100%
period.
true. And I'm glad you said that, because I say this in all my books, including this one. Muscle is the greatest deterrent to the diseases of aging.
And by the way, the best way to lose fat is to build muscle.
Of course.
Yeah.
But think about that. Just to unpack this for a second before we go deeper. The more muscular you are, the longer you will live.
The more
That is
muscular,
a fact.
and the more muscular you are, the easier it is to lose fat.
Exactly.
People don't understand that. So look, I'm going to quickly just break it down. The reason that the best way to lose fat efficiently and sustainably is to build muscle is because the more muscle your body has, the higher your resting metabolic rate, which means the more calories you're burning throughout the 24-hour period when you're not doing a fucking thing.
Bro, you and I right now in this podcast have burned more calories at rest than the average fat person burns in 2 days. No, but that's true. I mean, the energy that we're expiring right now, literally to speak.
Plus, we just worked out.
Exactly, but we're both high energy people. But we're also hypermuscular, right? And we're obviously doing these various things that we talk about, peptides, testosterone. But the number 2 thing besides protein is, are you hormonally optimized? Because if you're not hormonally optimized, and this happens in women a lot, you do eat, say, enough protein or close to enough protein. These are very powerful drugs, dude, and they can increase metabolic rate so much that you will lose muscle. And even as you know, even if you're just losing a little bit of muscle, that's horrible, because if you lose any muscle, you slow down metabolic rate, and we don't want that. And you can damage thyroid. So number 1 is enough protein. Number 2 is, are you hormonally optimized? I'm not saying that every person, man or woman, should be on testosterone. It's probably a good idea to be on testosterone, right?
Rick is such a loser. Sorry, stay on the point here.
But number three is, if you got those 2 things dialed in, the non-negotiables for sure are obviously resistance training and cardiovascular training, which, as you know, the average person is not doing. I mean, bro, every time you travel nowadays, when you go to the gyms, is there anybody even fucking in the gyms?
Well, so when I travel, I try to be intentional about seeking out a good gym.
Of course.
Because if it's available, I like exploring different environments. So I'll try to go to a gym where the demographic is conducive. But if in the rare times I step foot in a commercial gym, the people that are in there, it's very rare that you're going to see somebody with an impressive physique.
No.
So
It's unbelievable. And same thing, when I'm traveling, if I'm in a hotel gym, I always stay in a really 4 or 5 star hotel if I can, but there's no one ever in the gyms anymore.
And let me also just say, when it's at the same time rare to see somebody with a fit body, because there's a difference between an impressive physique and a fit
100%.
body. I'm not saying that everybody needs to look extraordinary, needs to turn heads and such.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I don't know that anybody has, when they started their fitness journey and started going to the gym, they're in the gym for years and they're in there several days. Yeah, and they look the exact same. I just can't even imagine the torment that causes.
That's
somebody.
modern conveniences, bro. We literally live in a world now where people can have the easy button. There's an app for that. They don't want to work hard. I mean, dude, you and I, people like us, Rick looks like too, it's really hard to find fit, conditioned people in society anymore, because no one's willing to put the work in.
In the West.
Yeah, in the West, obviously, you can go to places and you'll find people that are much more fit outside the U.S. But
So how many
Canada,
times
US,
a week
bad.
does one need to be, again, as part of these non-negotiable pillars, before even thinking or considering incorporating Retatrutide into one's arsenal? How many days a week strength training, non-negotiable, minimum mandatory?
Minimum 3, but I would say 4.
I would say 4 minimum mandatory.
Three to 4. I mean, obviously, some people are limited due to injuries and stuff, but if you know what you're doing, you can get away with 3. But the average person should be in the gym 4 times, and that's strength training.
And by the way, that's the average.
Right.
So look, if you want to be average, be in the gym 4 times. If you want to be better than average, I actually read there was a study that was done that actually put to rest this debate, because there's people that are going to tell you, well, you don't want to be in the gym too much because then you're overtraining and what have you.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I don't want to go into a long-winded discussion about this. 6 days a week was found to be the most effective protocol for both increasing lean body mass and decreasing body fat. 6.
I mean, I'll be 55 in February, and I train 7 days a week. Now, does that mean I lift 7 days a week? Fuck no. But I'm lifting or
You're
doing
active,
cardio.
getting after it, moving your
Yes,
body.
I'm doing that 7 days a week. There are no days off at my age. There's no days off at your age to look like we'd look. I'm not saying
it's to feel how we want to feel.
but I'm not saying that you can't take a day off now and then. But again, to be conditioned, to have a six pack, to have low body fat, to look good, to turn people's heads, as you said, to feel comfortable when you take your shirt off, you got to work. There's no side. There's no shortcuts.
Anybody that, I don't want to look like, yes, you do.
Yeah,
just stop saying that. Listen, just stop saying that. Stop thinking that. Because by you putting that out there, that's going to ensure that you never.
Right.
Don't say you don't want to, because everybody fucking knows. Every man walking this planet with a gut, with man tits, with just clear excess estrogen.
Gelatinous
Yeah. Look, anybody who is fat and has a fucking gut hanging over their belt, if they were given the option,
ashamed of themselves.
if a genie magically appeared and gave them the option to wake up tomorrow with a six pack, 100% of them would take that offer.
And would give up their money and their wages to look like that.
Completely. So if you want that genie to show up, if you want to show the universe that you're actually serious, going to the gym and putting in the work 6 days a week, that's a good place to start. And the reality of it is, in my experience, it is much easier to do something every day than to do something 3 days a week.
No doubt.
As far as creating the power of habit.
Yeah. The only other things, so just to recap them again, obviously 1 gram of protein per pound of goal body weight, hormonal optimization, strength training, cardiovascular training. After that, you're now getting into what we're talking about, peptides, growth hormone, low doses of mitochondrial peptides, mitochondrial, optimizing products like Sloop. These are all things that are great to throw in, but not after you don't have the basics.
They're not mandatory, but they're but I'm going to give you one that I think is probably not in the first tier, but definitely in between the first tier and the tier that you just put out there.
Right.
10 grams of creatine a day.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, for you, of course, for people in this room and in this environment. But it is shocking to me still how many people are not taking creatine, and not only not taking creatine, are not aware of the fact that it is not just about strength under a bar. It's not about muscle mass.
It's actually for brain health.
It is far more. That's what all of the latest research is showing, that it is far more beneficial from a cognitive function standpoint than anything else. And in fact, high doses of creatine, 25 grams a day, have been shown. So they did a study of 2 groups of people, okay, and they gave them like a IQ test, let's say, some type of cognitive test to assess their cognitive function at a baseline. And then they brought these same groups of people in a second time, gave them a different test, but under the same guidelines to assess the same things. The first group of people came in and, they had a normal night of sleep the night prior and took the test. Okay. No creatine. The second group of people, they sleep deprived these individuals. They got 0 sleep, came in the next day, gave them 25 grams of creatine, got their test scores, compared the two. Guess who had the higher test scores?
The sleep-deprived people.
The sleep-deprived people who took 25 grams of creatine prior to taking this test had higher cognitive reasoning skills as it translated to in this testing arena than people who had a regular night's sleep and took no creatine. I don't understand why more people aren't talking.
Well, I mean, I would say, just to say this, for me, metformin, desiccated thyroid, and creatine would also be in that of my, what I take in the morning when I wake up that's non-negotiable. So I would throw that in there. And yes, and honestly, creatine has insane cognitive benefit, right? We all know from the old bodybuilding days that it might help with glycogen repletion. It might give you more energy, creatine phosphate stores, et cetera. But we now know that it's non-negotiable for brain health. So yes, it's also cheap. But
easily available.
5 to 10 milligrams a day is a mandatory thing for everyone. And obviously there are studies that show that higher doses are more effective. I think the only other thing that I would throw in there, besides people like us who are accomplished and have biohacking tools, which we can get into, sleep, man. You got to sleep. You have to sleep somewhere between 6 to 8 hours a night. And again, it doesn't have to be direct, but obviously as long as you get 6, somewhere between 6 to 8 hours of consecutive. Because look, man, I'm 54 now, and I have to wake up and take a piss in the middle of the night, right? I mean, I have an atrophying, or not an atrophying, but a hypertrophying prostate, which all men have as you get older. So it's something you have to, navigate around and maneuver through. But as long as I can sleep 3.5 hours, wake up and piss, and sleep another 3.5 hours, I'm good to go, right? And I think all men, as we age, as we get into our 50s and 60s, have to deal with that. A lot of guys, even in their 40s, have that. So those are your non-negotiables when you're using a GLP. And you're right, I'm so glad you brought it up. You shouldn't fucking use a GLP if you're not doing those things, because you're going to have muscle loss, and you're going to have all these side effects, and you're going to go out there and say, I got to sue because I lost my eyesight, or my thyroid blew up, or whatever, because all these things happen because people don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Or you wake up one morning and you look in the mirror and you see that your physique
Is Gillette.
is just disgusting. Like skinny, fat, stretch marks fucking everywhere, like loose skin. You're able to like flap it around. It is like offensive to your own eyeballs. You can only imagine what it looks like to the outside world. So don't be that guy or girl. And I'm going to push back slightly on the creatine dose. The 5 grams, that shit is outdated, man. That is the like 20, 30 year protocol.
Right.
And that's the pushback I get when I'm speaking about this online and I'm posting about it. People are like, oh, 10 grams, or like 10 grams is too much. No, it's not. 5 grams is not enough.
In truth, I bet you the reason that is because people's diets are so poor now that 25 or 30 years ago, when they first started saying 5 or 10 was enough, it's because people ate more meat. And now we're living in a world of processed crap that nobody gets whole food. Well,
I think also that there's a large misconception around creatine and the fact that it, how it makes you retain water. You see, water retention, when spoken of commonly, that's not anything anybody wants. Like, nobody wants to retain water per se.
Right.
But with creatine, it's making you retain water on a cellular level, which makes your muscles look fuller, which makes your body look better, which is actually a good thing. It's just ignorance and, a lack of awareness. So if you're going to take creatine, you absolutely should. And by the way, I'm talking every human being walking the earth.
Every man.
I don't care if you're in
your dog should.
You should be in the fucking gym, but if you're not, you still should be taking 10 grams of creatine because
lack of brain power. So you're saying, Chris Cavallini, that people are getting dumber by the fucking minute?
Bro, it seems that that's the case.
It is the case.
Yeah, but the fact is they're unaware of it because they're just on their phones all day. They have no original thoughts of their own. They're basically repeating things that someone at one point mentioned to them, and they just decided to accept that as their worldview and just go through life defending. They're ready to die on that hill of ignorance.
It's absolutely
But they're blissfully unaware of that fact,
what's crazy is guys like you and I, and there's lots of us.
The Dunning-Kruger effect is what it's actually.
But guys like you and I, we make content and we put it out to help people, but we're not necessarily actually the consumer of it, right? Like, we only see content when people send it to us because we're actually fucking making things happen every day. People get mad at me because they'll tag me or something like that, and I don't know that it happens. And it's because I'm fucking doing stuff and creating stuff. And it's crazy how we are in such a world now where, like, if you don't respond instantly on social media to someone who tags you, you're considered like out of the ordinary. And honestly, man, like, I don't want to make excuses for it, but I have a team that handles that, right? And so, like, if I don't see it, I know there's going to be people that listen to this. It's not because I'm dissing you or because I'm ignoring you. It's because I'm literally doing other things.
Because he's up here winning and you're down there screen sucking.
Pretty much.
We ain't the same. I actually, that's an interesting point because I've often thought about that as well. My DMs, I for a lot of years, when I was kind of building myself up, I was very intentional about replying to everything, replying to all comments. And it has gotten to a point where
you can't do it.
Not only can I not do it, I just don't want to anymore. The amount of energy that it takes away, like my life's energy, and it makes me feel less good.
So imagine if people are messaging you on the hour, hundreds about peptides, helping them with their peptides.
So I think though, the reason this comes into play, and I think this is an important message to put out there, is people that, maybe feel slighted due to not getting a response back. Again, this is the Dunning-Kruger, the cognitive dissonance.
Right.
They think that because their inbox is empty and nobody's messaging them and they're on social media all day, that naturally the people that they are messaging are in that same category, which is just, I don't know why they would. I don't even think that they're like have taken the time to like sort that out. But the reality of it is like those type of people, like I know if somebody asks me, and God, by the way, I still try to do a good job to the best of my ability because I genuinely care.
I do
But
too.
how they approach it matters. Okay. If you send me a message that you could have like looked up the message or looked up the answer to that question in less than 30 seconds, and you're waiting like 7, 8, 9 days for me to respond, it doesn't matter if I could literally move in with you and fucking tell you exactly, you ain't going to do it.
No doubt.
You're not going to do it.
No doubt.
The reality of it is urgency and initiative is a massively brutally honest indicator of whether or not somebody is serious and whether or not that person is actually going to fall through and make things fucking happen.
You know, that's awesome and beautiful you stated. You know how I fix that myself is I have a private membership group. And if people really want access to me, it's $99 one fucking time. And you can come into my group and ask me unlimited messages. And guess what? I actually respond within an hour. But I mean, it's not a big ask. And I don't put people in a contract and I don't say, hey, you got to pay me all this money. I don't care. I don't coach people. I don't meet with people. But if you genuinely want to talk to me, it's $99 one time and then you can't, right? And that's how I separate the winners from the losers. And it's not to be mean, but like you said, most
You have to
of the
protect your energy, Jay.
Exactly, bro. I was just going to go to that energy field protection. But most of the people that ask you and me and people like us questions on social media could easily get the answers in 30 seconds, as you said. And if they were actually serious, they wouldn't be asking us.
No, you'd be out fucking doing shit and you'd be failing and you'd be failing forward and eventually you would land on the solution.
Yes.
You just reminded me of something that like I recently came to a point where I was like, fuck, man, like, because for so many years I prioritized it, I almost like found myself feeling guilty for not spending the time in the comments and in my DMs like I used to, and having so many going not replied to. I got to a point where I felt guilty, and I started to like analyze that and look at that and understand like, okay, why? And then somehow, I mean, I probably smoked a joint. And then I had what I thought was a great idea that I clearly didn't seem like a good enough idea to execute on. But now that this is kind of like coming full circle, you have to let me know what you think. So I was thinking, by the way, creating content, and I'm not a fitness influencer, guys. I'm a CEO of an 8-figure business that is in an explosive growth phase. I'm out here doing shit. I'm out here building. I'm out here leading a real team. So creating content, which is a job in and of itself, which people who don't do it will never understand how much bandwidth is required to constantly show up, to be interesting, to be entertaining, to just, to be unique, to stand out in a saturated online space. But I was like, all right. So I'm constantly looking for inspiration, something to make it easier, a system, if you will, to kind of streamline. And as it related to like the guilt I was feeling about not responding to some of these people and the annoyance and frustration I was experiencing from some of these people who are just like sending me messages like, fuck, I feel like if some of these idiotic questions, like, all right, this person clearly has not been following me for a long time.
Sure.
Because if they were, I feel like they would be a little further ahead from the basic competent standpoint. So I thought, you tell me what you think, man. Let's get a live reaction here. I was thinking about having like a pillar of content where I was responding to idiotic DMs, like just the most moronic, like low competence, low IQ, and not blasting them like, hey, calling this person. Like I'd show the DM, but not like I don't want to do that to anybody. And basically having that be more of an awareness building opportunity for people out there. Because I think most of these people are unaware of the fact that they're unaware.
Right.
And by putting it out there, not only would it be a very easy opportunity to have, I mean, goddamn, I get so many of them. It'd be an endless.
Bro, I love it. And I do it now on my Sunday night live stream.
Oh, do you?
And I don't like use their names. I just say, hey guys, here's a question that I got. You know what I mean? And then
We're not trying to necessarily destroy anybody.
But no, we're not, and we're actually helping the cause because it gives people like you said, the breadcrumb to not ask a question that doesn't make any sense.
Or just to understand that the solution and the step forward is not to ask a question at all. It is to get out there and do shit.
Make shit happen.
It's fucking insane to me. Like, And I'm at a different level, obviously, than these people that are messaging me. But there's a lot of people that are at much higher levels than I will ever achieve. Okay. And I'm aware of that. I realize that there are certain people out there that are just built differently, that they are extraordinary. The way that they operate, their purpose, they have a higher purpose. They are just willing to make more sacrifices than I am. Like, I acknowledge that.
Yep.
I do also realize there's some people who are ahead of me that one day will not be.
Right.
Dude, under no circumstances would I ever like lower myself to send them like a message where I'm like, hey, how do you do this? And that's how some of these morons approach it, right? They're not like, hey, Jay, you know, I'm a big fan. Some of the work you have done has changed my life for the better. And I just want to say thank you.
Yep.
I was wondering if you have time, I understand, and then ask the question.
Yeah.
That is a completely different approach. And
by the way, you and I, every single time that happens, are we not going to respond to that person?
Not only am I going to respond, they're going to get probably a 2-minute voice note. Maybe even, hey, listen.
I know that's true, by the way.
If I'm looking decent, maybe I'll send them a video. Depends. 50% of the time, you know, if I'm done up. But what were you going to say? You know that it's
that's
true?
exactly. I know that that's true because do you know how many of my friends have told me that Chris Cavallini is the most amazing person ever because he's left me a voice message.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that from so many people, and I know that that's who you are. And by the way, I do the exact same thing. It's really simple. I'm glad you brought that up. All you have to do is show respect, be a little bit humble, and then ask your question. And guys like you and I who care as much as we do, we're going to give you an answer.
Because that's the thing a lot of people fail to realize is people who are winning want to help other people win.
Exactly.
But we're aware that we can't. I mean, we can't drag losers up the hill. We only have the energy to serve so many. So the selection process is very simple. Like, people want to help other people who are trying to help themselves.
Exactly.
And that is very like as crazy as it sounds, I can tell in a direct message 80 to 90% certainty whether someone is actually trying to help themselves or if they're just being fucking lazy and pathetic, sitting there jerking off, and then in between sending me a DM because they see something that they would like to have in their life, but clearly are not willing to make the necessary sacrifices to procure or make happen.
Agree 100%.
So look, we got a little kind of in the weeds on that, but I think that was valuable. I want to pivot to a product that I have used with a great deal of success that I think will help a lot of people, especially losers like Rick who are afraid of needles and injections. So before we actually talk about this product, I have a question.
Okay.
We discussed something about 6 months ago. There was a certain oil that was being used in certain pharmacies for testosterone purposes that said oil, you could actually use an insulin needle to withdraw. What is that oil? And due to the fact that that oil would be more expensive to pharmaceutically compound, and the majority of pharmacies do not use the oil, that I don't know its name, but I know the majority of compounded testosterones do not have this oil. If somebody was to procure that oil on their own, add it to the bottle that they would get from a compounding from the pharmacy, would it be possible for them to administer their testosterone injections with an insulin needle? The reason I ask is I believe that would be lowering the barrier of resistance. I think that would be massive for a lot of people who are just huge pussies, as I said, like Rick, who are afraid of needles, and like their whole shit is wrapped up in this like method of administration, which is preventing them from experiencing the powerfully transformative benefits of testosterone. I mean that.
So the oil. So the answer is yes, yes, and yes. The oil you're talking about is MCT oil, which stands for medium chain triglyceride oil, which is palmitic acid, which is a very, very thin, very, very how would I say it, like.
Sorry, while you're thinking, Rick is in the room, by the way. I want to make sure everybody at home understands
He's laughing in the background. We love Rick. But so first off, there are pharmacies now, since you and I did our last podcast, that are actually selling it. both for men and women. And again, the answer, or to explain it, is a very, very thin, very, very fast absorbing oil. Again, palmitic acid, it's really comes from coconut oil, is you can inject it because it's so thin with a very, very small fine gauge needle, as you said, an insulin syringe. So you can use a 29 or 30 gauge needle, which again is microscopic, which is no pain.
Let me jump in here, which means I could literally, if you
Jab Rick in the face and he wouldn't feel it.
I could, well, I say this, okay, I'm about to, I've actually done what I'm about. You could literally stick somebody in their sleep
And they wouldn't.
and they will not wake up necessarily. Granted, the time that I did it, this individual had drank a lot of whiskey and he was passed out. And the context, let me tell you the context behind it. I had like some peptides with me. This was years, a long time ago. This is one of my buddies I grew up with in Boston. And I thought it would be funny. And it was funny. Maybe people won't agree.
Right.
He was passed out. I mean, he was snoring. I had observed how much alcohol he consumed. There was no way he was waking up. Plus, I had a thin gauge, 31-inch insulin needle. I decided it would be a good idea to stick it in his forearm. I stuck it in his forearm, left it left it there, and then basically what we did is we left the room, came back as if we were coming in, like popped the lights on, slammed the door to wake him up. So he woke up
To freak out.
with a insulin
Syringe
in it,
in
like
his
syringe, like how one would administer heroin or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was fucking hilarious. I'm not going to lie. But I'm not saying anybody should do that. I'm saying that is a testament to the fact that you realistically, you cannot feel it. It is such a tiny, it just slides in there super comfortably. It is nothing like getting a shot at the doctor. Nothing. It's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Please
so,
continue.
No, but so you can use a 29, 30, even probably 31 gauge, women and men, depending on the preparation, cypionate, ananthate. Even women have a 20 milligram per milliliter cypionate, again, because it's a much lower dose for women. And you can administer it anywhere. You could do it subcutaneous, which obviously you and I already talked about on our one podcast. We don't really like injecting subcutaneous because if you do have a belly as a man or a woman, it can
Stick to intramuscular, just if you could use.
100%. Yeah, 100%. For that reason, you should inject IM. But you're right, Chris. There's no pain. You will not feel it. You can inject it in your delt, your tri, upper shoulder. You can obviously do your glute. You can do your quad. There's so many areas on the body. If you have chest, you can actually ingest up here. But yeah, there's no doubt that it's available and you can get it from pharmacies now.
So people that are prescribed testosterone currently should ask for testosterone with MCT oil
100%.
by name specifically. And let's say that one's provider does not currently offer that. Would one be able to procure MCT oil, add it to the existing, and just maybe, work out the dose to be able to have the ability to inject it with?
No, you can't do that because the carrier oil that would have it before that, which would probably be like propylene glycol or something else, would just separate the MCT oil and screw it up.
Yeah, so ask for MCT oil.
Yeah, and by the way, there's actually, and I don't know the name of it, but there's a new form of MCT oil, which is, again, palmitic acid, but a different form of it. So you can get it. It's readily available. Strive Pharmacy has it. Empower Pharmacy has it. Many, many pharmacies now in California and Florida have it. Obviously, our good friend, we don't have to name, he has it. So, I mean, there's a lot of different pharmaceutical versions out there right now.
Before we talk about Sloop, another question that I just had. Look, I for many years, I wasn't procuring testosterone or any of the other anabolics that I was taking. And by the way, I've actually arrived at the conclusion recently. It's been a few years since I did like a proper cycle, like full blast.
Yep.
When I say full blast, I mean various compounds, not excessive amounts.
Yeah.
Fun fact about me, the most I've ever done testosterone wise was 750 milligrams. And that was like in my early 20s.
Sure.
And I was just pissed off.
Right.
So I moderated it.
Yep.
And the last several cycles that I did, again, this is like a few years back, once I kind of just no longer felt the need for it, 300 milligrams of test.
Exactly.
And because more is not better.
I've never in my life ever taken more than, I would say, 200 to 225 milligrams of test in a week, ever.
So the where I was going with that is I am aware that there's going to be people out there that, especially some of the young men who consume my stuff.
Right.
They're not at the point yet where they're going to a hormone optimization clinic, and they're not going to get the pharmaceutical prescribed and monitored protocol, right? They're going to procure gear on the underground, whether it's testosterone or whether it's another compound. Are there any like efficacious methods that you're aware of that people can turn to actually test the gear that they're taking?
Yeah, there's a number of companies out there. There's what is it, Kitric or what shit, I forget there. It ends with an Itric, but if you just search drug testing, independent drug testing, there's a lot of companies out there that you can send and test your gear. You can test testosterone, peptides, all of that.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important in the current climate.
Oh, of course.
Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to take something that is sold to you as one compound, but in reality it's something completely different, and you're not doing blood work.
Yeah, no.
So you get no idea what's going on. I think honestly, again, I'm not going to try to dissuade anybody out of doing something. I'm not talking you in or out of it. I'm just saying if you are going to do it, just be responsible. The last thing that you want to do is get bitch tits. The last thing you want to do is completely crash your natural testosterone levels once you get off.
Yeah.
You're in this like depressive, like low libido, like chronic low energy and fatigue. You don't want to be in that position. So the responsible thing to do, the professional thing to do, what a high performance individual is going to do is take that extra layer of protection and make sure that what you're putting in your body is actually what you think you're putting in your body.
Yeah, and honestly, two things. And nobody is young enough not to get a blood test. You and I already talked about that. There's so many companies. There's private MD labs, discount labs, direct labs. There's so many companies out there, and they don't have to be educated on how to read blood work, because you can go on YouTube. You can listen to me and you. I mean, we've all talked about this, but there's literally thousands of videos online of how to read your labs. But again, all the smart companies, especially like private MD labs, which I recommend, they color code everything now. So they give you this long standardized report. They tell you if your testosterone's low. They tell you if your free testosterone's low. And bro, you can get all this stuff for $99. But the one other thing that I would say to mention is that there is a website called Erowid, and it's EROWID.com. And they have an entire section of where you can test your products. And every company in the world that tests it independently, and they go up by cheapest to most expensive. So if you want like a deep dive lab assay where they break down every single element or trace element in your actual product, you can go that way and pay more. If you want just like, hey, it's 99% test and 80% propylene glycol or whatever, you can do that too. But Erowid.com is a great site to go to get independent lab testing.
Awesome. Yeah, and this is the last thing I wanted to talk about is just sloop, but I don't really feel the need to break this down from a scientific standpoint. All I'm going to say is this. I love this product, man, and I'm really happy that you shared this with me and made me aware of this. Again, this was something that you recommended that I immediately started to take based off what you said, and then just like always, this is the process that I have with new things. When I have something that is presented to me by somebody I trust and respect and is further down the road in proficiency or competency in that area, like I want to take immediate action. I don't want there to be any kind of gap or delay, because too many things can happen and then it's off the radar.
Yep.
So I started to take it, and then naturally when I started putting it in my body, I'm a lot more compelled to like throw on a YouTube video, and I started to learn about it, and I started to see like just, well, first of all, there's not like an abundance of mainstream information on it, but everybody is saying the same thing, and it's all positive.
Yes.
The compound is called SLUPP332.
Affectionately known as Sloop, as you said.
Effectively known as Sloop, and this is an exercise mimetic, which means somehow, okay, it's crazy to even say this, because the running joke has always been like, there's no like exercise in a bottle. Right. You got to do this. Effectively is exercise in a bottle. This will replicate the effects of not only exercise but fasting. Can you do a quick like high level breakdown that a fifth grader would be able to understand?
Yep.
as far as how it's able to do that?
So Chris's audience, he's just disrespecting you right now, because most of you guys are literally 12th,
that's for my own personal
12th grade education. No, obviously, it's a great question. It is an exercise mimetic, which basically means that if you take it and you don't exercise, you will get benefit. But obviously, we've already spent almost 90 minutes, I think, on this podcast talking about you got to exercise, motherfucker.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ. There's nothing that you can take that is literally going to make like you are exercising. But if you exercise and do all the things that we're talking about and you use Sloop, and again, from a dosage standpoint, I think I should say this because I think people are confused. When Sloop first came into the public, which was literally 18 months ago, and we were one of the first companies, BioLongevity Labs, at the end of last year to launch it. 6 months before that was like Modern Aminos and Amino Asylum, which, by the way, went under and now became Soma Chems. They were giving out 100 micrograms in a capsule, and people were getting benefit from it, including myself. We reinterpreted the research about 6 months ago, and all the studies, which were, by the way, in rats, but at the University of Florida, which they replicated 3 times, the dosage was 50 milligrams per kilo in rats. And so we're like, wait a minute, this is insane. We are underdosing this. So shout out to my boy, the gorilla chemist, Brian Moscow, who has a big, following on Instagram. We hired him as our chief science officer in August. And he was like, Jay, you're an idiot. You need to make a higher dose version of Sloop. This is what I found out in 8 weeks of using it at between 400 and 800 milligrams a day. And so then he gave it to me and I started taking it from his own. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. The bottom line with it is if you're a woman, you should take 100 to 200 milligrams a day. If you're a man, you should take somewhere between 200 and 800 milligrams a day. And I know men who are in the professional bodybuilding ranks who have taken a gram a day. And it is without a doubt, and again, I've looked at all the supplements over 30 years of being in this space, the strongest over-the-counter product, pound for pound, inch for inch, than anything. It does optimize your mitochondria. So what does that mean? It will give you more firepower in the gym. It will generate more force production. It will lean you out. It will increase ATP production, which is obviously increasing or super glycogenating all the muscle firepower you have. So your glycogen that shows up in your body from eating carbs will get super ramped up. So you'll be fuller. And again, I think the one thing that people notice when they're lifting with it or when they're training with it is they have unlimited energy. It's super firepower to train. And so over time, if you're eating right, doing the right things that we talked about on this podcast, hormonally optimized, maybe using peptides and throwing in Sloop, you're going to get bigger. You're going to gain muscle. You're going to definitely feel fuller and look bigger and look more vascular because it's dramatically increasing ATP production in your body. So I think one of the other things that people notice is they can eat a lot more food and not gain weight, meaning fat weight, because it's super improving, again, mitochondrial efficiency. So you're burning through a lot of the calories that you're eating. It's a really powerful and profound product.
I couldn't agree more. There was 2 different times that I had something I was wanting to just kind of step it up for as far as my physique. And I used this, and both times it made a significant difference.
And it happens fast too, right?
It's like
10 days, 2 weeks, you notice things.
I noticed the first time that I took it, I could feel just something was happening during my workout.
For sure.
I took it before I trained, and I just felt like I was able to go harder, longer, which is very rare that I have that awareness immediately with something.
Yes.
But I felt, it wasn't crazy, but it was something, and it compounded as time went on. And the reality of it is, I alluded to earlier that I hadn't done a true cycle of steroids in many years. And the truth is, with all of these different compounds that are now available between Sloop and Retatrutide, I just don't know that it would be necessary.
Yeah.
Now, anytime that I don't really talk about this a lot because I would have to go out of my way to speak about it. But anytime that it's come up when it's been relevant, like when I say that, I hadn't been on an actual cycle of steroids in years. I have people that, in the comments, they say that I'm on trend right now.
Of course.
And, I'm on a gram a test. Right. And look, I swear to God, it has been fucking 7 years since I tried trend. And the last 2 times I tried trend, it was about 3 weeks, both times, where I was reminded of why I can't take trend. When I reached 34, 35, I noticed that it got to a point where I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was always like that, but maybe because at that stage I had more responsibilities and more going on, so it was more of a detriment.
Yeah, of course.
But I literally got to a point where I was staring at the fucking ceiling all night. Yeah. And there's literally nothing that you can give me
No.
like that is going to make that worth it. Cause that was just awful. Cause then the next day you're fucked.
Yeah.
Right. The next 2 days even.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we both know, dude, and I don't want to rabbit hole because we're talking about what we're talking about right now, but Tren is a nasty drug. It fucks up the brain. You know, the short-term benefits that you get are not worth the long-term harm that it does. And again, if you're a professional bodybuilder and you need to compete, you know.
A lot of them have gravitated towards other things as well.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, Tren is one of those drugs, again, acetate more so than anathate. It's really a gnarly drug, and the cost definitely does not, the reward does not outweigh the long-term health.
Oh, and it works, certainly. And I think when you're young and stupid and unaware of the fact that you're young and stupid, what ends up happening is like your body is so resilient, and whatever damage that you're doing to it internally during a cycle, you're going to be okay, provided you don't stay on it for a long time. The thing is, the reason Trent is talked about so much is because, you know, it did have a very solid reputation for getting results for the longest time. And that's not to say you won't get results. I think the point that I'm trying to make is with all these like other options that give you all this utility without any of the risks and downside and side effects, there's just no reason for a reasonable individual to go down that path. Now, one thing I want to say about the sloop, okay, this stuff is not inexpensive.
Right.
And why do you think that is?
Well,
because it's fucking effective, because it works. Listen, guys, as it relates to quality, you're not going to find quality products at discount prices. It's just not going to fucking happen.
Well, there's one other thing to add, though, to that, because you're right, and it is expensive. But, dude, the one thing that I have not mentioned, because I just got my lab panels back. I did it in the beginning of the year, and then I just did it now. Dude, all my biomarkers improved. I have the lowest inflammatory markers that I've ever had, and that's what it says in the studies with the University of Florida. It improves renal function. It improves vascular function. So it's suppressing inflammatory markers. So there's a reason it's expensive. It's not only improving your physique, it's improving your biological age. It's an insane product.
Yeah. The thing is, though, guys, poor people focus on price.
Of course.
Rich people focus on value.
Exactly.
Okay. So if you're not rich, but you aspire to be, start focusing on value, because it is quite literally an investment. This is not like something you get. It's not a pair of Jordans.
Right.
Whatever, right? This is a product that you will invest in that will, no question, improve the quality of your life, improve the state of your health, objectively and measurably.
No doubt.
Provided you're, getting your blood work done. So again, just remember, like, the poor will focus on price, the rich focus on value. And Jay, I think that's a phenomenal place to call it, brother. I appreciate you coming in and making everybody aware of the current state of affairs. We got a new year we're about to enter to, and I think in closing, the only thing I would like to say to the people that have just consumed this content is I want you to, like, just pretend somehow, like, get yourself mentally to the point where the information that you just consumed, I want you to believe that you have spent $1,000. You had to invest $1,000. You had to swipe your credit card, enter your credit card information, and it costs $1,000 for you to consume this information. And I want you to do what you would do with this information if you actually had to make that investment to obtain it. Jay, I'll turn it over to you to take us home.
Man, love you, bro. And this is an amazing podcast. And every time we do one, I think we get better and better. And, thanks for Rick for being the audio guy and being here in the background. But all I can say is that it is a new year. If you are serious about your health, you're serious about taking action, you're serious about with your initiative, the information that we just provided in this last 90 minutes or whatever it is as good as it gets. And we gave you so many nuggets of wisdom, so many places to take action and to start. Do not be that guy who hesitates, because at the end of the day, bro, as you know, he who hesitates is lost.
Life is short. Don't be a pussy. Appreciate you, Jay.
Love you, bro.